Box and Wireless Scotland, the very best of your box and wireless.
If you've just joined us, a very good morning to you and a warm welcome to Scottie McClue's Massive Mighty Megaphone in for Friday the 24th of April 2009. It promises to be a very packed programme this morning, and we've got Tommy Moffat joining us very shortly, who's going to talk about the veterans coming back from battle from the British Army and their care, their aftercare after they leave the services, etc., etc. So Tommy Moffat will be joining us very shortly from FEBA in Hamilton, and we'll be talking to them to get a clearer picture of what is exactly what's out there. By the left, quick march!
Box and Wireless Scotland.
Ah yes, status quo and in the army now. Well, I'll tell you, we're in the army, we're out to the army, we've all sorts of things going on in the studio at L107 this morning. Scottie McClue's Massive Mighty Megaphone in. I'm absolutely privileged to have with me in the studio this morning Tommy Moffat from FIBA and Ian Forsyth, a former hussar, who's come along this morning just to talk about the situation. Now, the doors have been opened to army veterans in charity for the first time. It was a religious experience, or almost a religious experience, for Tommy Moffat, and he opened up FEBA in Hamilton, and this is for looking after veterans of the three services, the Army, the Navy and the Air Force. And Tommy himself realised when he came out of the services, he was a former Queen's Own Highlander, which were formerly the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, and Tommy himself realised that it wasn't particularly easy coming out of service life to adjust to life in Civistry. I don't think it ever has been, but he decided to do something about it and opened the centre under FEBA, the Forward Edge of the Battlefield Association, called that, of course, because the forward edge of the battlefield is where soldiers are always at their most vulnerable. And
Box and Wireless Scotland.
Tommy has done some fantastic work with his volunteer team there, providing all sorts of services for the veterans. Unfortunately, with the credit crunch, dare I say that, and with the economic situation as it is, money is very, very tight for this kind of work, and the centre could close. It will close if money is not found. Now, I've got a rather unhappy Tommy Moffat in the studio with me this morning. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Scotty.
How are you this morning, sir?
Well, circumstances, I'm well. It's a sad day for us.
Yeah.
To realise that this could happen to us. But we are not in a position to tell whether we're going to close or not, but it's a sad day for FEBA.
Right, Tommy, let's go back to the beginning here. There you were, I would imagine, reasonably happily settled into service life. What kind of time are we talking about? 25, 30 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah?
In that time span, yes.
Yes, and you're quite settled. You've got wife, family?
Yes.
Yes, and you went where the British Army dictated one goes.
But wherever we were needed, we went and served for the country.
Now, what people forget very often about the armed services is they are essentially a peacekeeping force. They are peacekeeping forces, and they get sent all over the world and might end up helping out in situations of famine or earthquake or a war zone where military expertise is required, putting in bridges, putting in water supplies, etc., etc. That all goes on, am I not right?
That's correct, Scotty, and whenever the country needs us, we are there for them. But in the case of when we need the help of the country, and that help seems a bit distant.
It seems to disappear like snow off a dike.
It does that, Scotty.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you've been in before in the company of Jimmy Hood, the MPs, and also you had a very distinguished gentleman with you called Ian Forsyth, a former hussar, and Ian's with us in the studio this morning. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning.
Lovely to see you again.
Well, I would like to say the same, but this is a sad occasion.
It is a sad occasion, yes, absolutely. So we're meeting under different circumstances, but who knows, because radio is a very powerful thing, and a lot of people will be listening this morning, and it might just inform, educate a lot of people about what you're about here. Now, Tommy, tell us a little bit about FEBA.
FIBA, as we said, Scott, is an organisation that supports our ex-servicemen women in the tri-service and the TA.
So you're Army, Navy, Air Force and Territorial?
Yes.
Yeah, and does the Territorial Army also take in the Auxiliary Air Force, etc., and the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve?
If you're wearing the badge, you're entitled to our support.
Right.
We never turn anybody away. No one's judged. No one is asked to do anything they don't want to do, but we are there for them.
Now, you've opened the centre in Hamilton. You've got all sorts of facilities, which we will come to shortly. You've got the gift shop, the cafe. You've got a gym. You've got facilities for sustenance, facilities for talking, for an element of counselling, etc., etc. Am I right there?
That's correct, Scotty, and we hope to do more along those lines.
What makes you think, I mean, I'll put this question out to either yourself or to Ian Forsyth, what makes you think, though, that soldiers need help any more than, say, miners or steel workers that have suffered an industrial accident, or somebody that runs the corner shop that's been traumatised by a raid on the shop? I mean, why have we singled out service people for needing help in particular? Because surely when you sign up for the services, you know what you're getting involved in. Would that not be the case?
That's correct, Scotty, but I'd like to hand over to Ian and explain that.
I would say to you on that point, you think you know what you've let yourself in for, but you haven't. You don't. Not by any manner of means.
So when you get yourself to the recruiting office, Ian, and you see the recruiting officer, and you get yourself in there, get yourself fit, get your uniform, do your passing out, and you're looking the part, feeling the part, and ready for action. What suddenly changes?
It's the glamorous side.
Right.
But then, suddenly, the glamour has gone, and you are trained for months, and you're well trained in survival.
Box and Wireless Scotland.
You're at a very, very high pitch. You're keyed up, you're wound up to a high pitch. And a young lad, and remember we're talking about 18 and 19-year-old boys at this stage.
Yeah, and you're fit as a fiddle, Ian.
You're as fit, you feel great. And then suddenly you're plunged into a situation that is completely strange to you. You don't realise what you're going into.
What's that situation, Ian? What suddenly changes? When does the dark mist come down?
The dark mist comes down. I don't know what I say it was the dark mist that come down. But suddenly
life changes.
Somebody shoots at you.
Right. So a bullet whistles past your head.
And you wonder, what's that? Where did that come from? You don't know where it came from. Another one comes past. You're throwing yourself down on the ground. You're trying to dig yourself into the ground to escape.
Just to get away from this horror.
Because you don't know where it's coming from. This is the type of war. I wrote an article just recently trying to explain the difference between First, Second and the present war that's going on. Right. This is now the terrorist war.
Right, so we had the First World War, which was trench warfare, fighting with rifles, machine guns, hand-to-hand combat, fixed bayonets, no holds barred, all the rest of it, for a little bit of ground to try and see if you could take over a field or whatever, and we lost a third of a generation.
But it was army against army.
Yes, uniform against uniform.
You knew your enemy.
Yes, you could see they were in the trenches just in front of you.
Exactly.
Now, the Second World War, again...
that was a mobile war.
Yes. But again, you knew your enemy, you knew who you were fighting.
You knew your enemy, but for the first time in the history, civilians were as much in the front line as the soldiers were.
Right, because of the bombing raids, yeah, the blitzes, etc.
But now we've come to a third stage in warfare, where nobody knows where the enemy is. We think it's in front, but it could well be behind you. We don't know who's firing at us. Sometimes there is no way we can retaliate.
Now, is this not why the enemy are doing this? Because they think, you know, let's not be fighters, let's be cowards, if you like, and let's have complete inhumanity.
Well, it is complete inhumanity.
I'm talking rolling grenades into shops. I mean, it went on in Aden 40 years ago.
When you get youngsters, boys and girls, packed with explosives going into a supermarket or a queue of some sort or a railway station and blowing themselves up, this is not the warfare that the general public know about.
Yeah.
We read about it in the papers. That's fine.
So you might be keeping peace in Iraq or Afghanistan, you might be there trying to help children out, you might be there trying to help frighten people away from a situation. Somebody comes and stands beside you and bang, up they go, and you know, you could be very seriously wounded or killed.
You could be. Now, I have to say this, sometimes, this is very difficult to say, it's better to be killed than wounded.
I was just going to ask you that question, Ian, because it's such a huge question, and obviously you and I would be, if I can use the term, shot down in flames for saying it, but is it is it sometimes a better situation when somebody doesn't have to suffer the terrible wounds of battle? If somebody, say, so-and-so was killed, but so-and-so has been blinded and lost a couple of limbs?
The worst thing... Yes, you're quite right. The worst thing, and the thing I used to pray against, was that I would not be burnt.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see some of the people who are so badly burned and disfigured, and they have to live with that for the rest of their lives, I would rather have been killed off.
Do you think that's when we see real bravery as well?
Box and Wireless Scotland.
You see real bravery and you see real suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not only the person who's burnt that suffers. It's the people who are round about him, his mates, the ones he's trained with, the ones he's lived with, and they see this happening, and it dwells in their mind.
And they know, but for the grace of God, it could be any of them.
Oh, without a doubt.
Now, this brings us round very interestingly to exactly what we're dealing with here. We've actually we've taken the covers off here, if I can say, Ian, and what we're looking at here is governments then get embarrassed with disfigured soldiers, don't they?
Oh gosh, aye.
You know, they're not keen to sit and watch the television at night and there is the face of a man who's been badly bombed.
No, nobody wants to see this. The government doesn't want to accept this.
Yes, but it's not because it's difficult to look at a young man who's been disfigured. I think it's because it's difficult for them to accept that they gave the command for that man to go to that theatre of war.
Yes, it's very difficult, and I can't answer for politicians because I'm not a politician. But what I do know is that as soon as your work is finished, you're forgotten.
Right, so there's an element of the scrap heap.
Without a doubt.
Yes, we don't want to know how long is this person's service record, so they're actually finished, yes, they're actually invalided out. Good, job done, right, we need to recruit.
We need new folk, and we don't want to let the new folk see what has happened to the old folk.
Right. Do you see, I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot here, Ian, but do you see a lot of ex-service people becoming pacifists, conscientious objectors?
Yes, I have to be honest and say that many of the people I served with became not only members of the church, but they became ministers of the church.
Well, great names. I mean, it's a while since he was with us, but George McLeod, the man that set up Iona. George was in the Argylls in the First World War, was wounded and won the MC, and then became a pacifist for the rest of his life.
I think most of us who actually were faced with the terrible dilemma of kill or be killed becomes a pacifist.
What is that? You've been in that situation. What is that moment like when you've been trained as soon as the order goes, but also there must be a time when someone appears in front of you with you're looking down the barrel of a loaded gun?
Now, this is where the damage is done. You are wound up, as I said before, to such a point that the spring is nearly breaking.
So when the command comes out, fire, you fire.
You not only do you fire, you go the extra distance. It's later on that you ask yourself, did I do right? Could I have done something else? Did I have to kill this man? And that is when
you feel you've...
Excuse me.
Are you all right, Ian?
We're just having a bit of difficulty coping with it.
Yes. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break, and I'll just be back with you in a moment. If you're listening, folks, a very warm welcome to Scottie McClue's Mighty Phone In this morning. I have as my honoured guests in the studio Tommy Moffat from FEBA and Ian Forsyth, a former Hussar, and we're just discussing the situation surrounding the service people of our country and our ex-service people. Back with you after this. Big centre in Hamilton, which is experiencing some difficulty at the moment with the credit crunch. Now, it's not experiencing difficulty because of what's offered with the centre. The centre is an absolute jewel in the crown, if I can use that. It's a jewel in the crown of a place where people, it's a place of sanctuary where people who have served our country in the armed forces can actually go for assistance and for help. And I'm also delighted to have with me Ian Forsyth. Ian's a former Hussar. Both Tommy and Ian have suffered battle trauma. They've been at the very, very front of action. They've seen action in many theatres of war, and they're with us today. It is an emotive and emotional journey for them, and of course we accept that, and I'm grateful to them for pressing on. How are you doing, gents?
Well, I'm fine,
Okay.
Scotty.
Wonderful.
You cracked it on the head, Scotty, when you said this is an emotional...
It's an emotional journey for you
journey
two.
for
Yes,
us,
because
and
you've been there.
It's an emotional journey for our servicemen and women.
And you're there now, in actual fact. The battle is still going on for you two gents.
The battle's raging.
You know, and I'm not going to ask your how many years you've been in the earth, but let's just say it's upwards of half a century.
It's a long time.
I think more than others.
Do you think that might make a diplomat yet?
We're getting there, Scott.
We're getting there.
I don't know. I'm not going to agree with that.
No. Now,
Diplomats don't tell the truth.
diplomats don't tell the truth. Oh, well, there we are. That's it. Yes, indeed. The language of diplomacy on L107 this morning. You guys are certainly telling the truth, and this is so much appreciated. Now, Ian, so the soldier gets to that moment, and you have to make that decision, and that must be a major trauma, because you're saying, have I taken another man's life? Is there any way I could have avoided it?
Box and Wireless Scotland.
Yes, that is very true.
But would the other side of that not be that if you hadn't fired, that person would have taken your life?
That you know at the time. But it's
Very
after
difficult
the time
difficult to reconcile it.
you ask yourself.
And is that the kind of major issue surrounding battle trauma?
Yes, it is. Plus the fact that when you come home, and I'm speaking here from personal experience, you're on a high.
You've had a successful tour.
You come home and you think to yourself, I'll be welcomed with open arms.
And you've survived.
And because you've survived, you think you will be welcomed with open arms. But you're only in a high for a certain time, and then people get on to you and you say, forget what's happened, it's over, get back to what you were. Now, you can never go back to what you were.
Now, this is when you're still in the services and you're coming back to your barracks. Or is this when you've actually left the service?
This is when you've left the service. While you're with the services, you're with your own guys.
Right.
You expect to be living.
You've got an element of support. You've got food. You've got shelter. You've got. Are there situations there where you can receive support, psychological support?
Well, the psychological support comes from the man next to you.
Right.
Who's gone through the same things as you.
The two of you sit and talk at night.
So you can talk.
Yes.
But when you come home, your family don't want to know about what you've gone through.
Well, is it not the case that most soldiers don't tell them or don't even attempt to go there? They want to protect them.
No, it's not a case of not wanting to go there, not wanting to wanting to protect them. It's a case of there is no point in saying anything if nobody's interested.
Or nobody would understand.
Or nobody who hasn't been there understands.
Box and Wireless Scotland.
That's perfectly true.
Do you then have to compartmentalise your brain and try and put these places into some sort of storage, put these situations into some sort of storage place in your mind, so that you're attempting not to recall it?
You can't. You can put them into a storage place, but when you go to bed at night and everything is quiet and everything is dark, and you see the flashes in front of you, you see the faces in front of you,
the noise,
you hear the shouts. Night is not a good time for ex-servicemen who've been through the
mill,
through the firing. Mm-hmm. It's not a good time. And you've got to store this away. What do you do?
So you end up not sleeping?
You don't sleep. If I say to you, I have taken sleeping pills every night for the last 60 years, or I don't sleep at all, that gives you some insight.
So instantly the body becomes, to a certain degree, unwell.
The mind is unwell.
The mind is unwell, and the mind runs the body, of course.
Of course it
the
does.
mind drives the lot. So people then think, I wonder if you mentioned sleeping pills there, people say, I wonder if a dram would help, I wonder if a larger dram would help.
Oh gosh, that is very true. And if people see an ex-serviceman and he's had one too many, they condemn him.
Mm-hmm.
They don't try to understand why is he doing this. He's doing this to hide, to get out, to get his mind away from what is going on inside. It's a terrible situation.
Yes, because it's Hobson's choice, isn't it? It's no choice, really. You're not actually choosing to have a dram to get rid of what's happening, because it doesn't. In the morning, I would imagine you've got the anxiety plus the remnants of the dram on top of that to deal with.
That just makes matters worse.
Yes.
Now, the one way, and this I'm going to come back to what Tommy's doing at the moment. One way to get your mind off it is to do something physical.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be
gardening, painting,
peaceful fishing, painting, or something more physical like climbing a mountain, or going for.
Now, a lot of ex-service people do that because they're probably still fit from the service days.
Oh, they are.
And they think, I just need to climb a mountain, I need to see clear blue water, I need to see fresh green grass, I need to see that the world is peaceful. Because I would imagine, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would imagine you still have that element of looking over your shoulder. You don't know where the big bang is going to come from.
Can I tell you, to illustrate what you said, I went to Spain one year. It was during the time when they reenacted the invasion of Spain, and of course every village has a magnificent fireworks display. I couldn't stand and listen to it.
I was just going to say 5th of November, you think?
I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I know that many people will be under the bedclothes.
Yes.
On the 5th of November, because these bangs are so much like what they've experienced before that their mind will automatically float back
Box and
to
Wireless
situations
Scotland.
that they're trying desperately to forget and can't.
Now, one is very anxious that our politicians these days, particularly those concerned with, we won't mention names or point fingers, but those concerned with defence, do not have a service record themselves and may not actually make the effort to go and see exactly what's involved, may not make the effort to talk to people like yourself and Tommy and the many people that come into FEBA. Would I be right in thinking there's an element of ignorance out there about what service life is all about?
There is no doubt about it in my mind. There is, even if they do go, they're cosseted and protected.
There's a smell of new paint, they're not going to end up near the battle area, etc.
They're not going to be put in a scout car and sent out onto a road by themselves, knowing full well there are mines on either side of that road.
Now, the reason I've asked you this is because politicians in the past, I mean, Harold Macmillan as the Prime Minister was Captain Macmillan, and right up, I mean, people are coming into their 80s now, their late 70s, early 80s, but national service, so they would have seen service in one of the services, RAF, Air Crew, one of the Scottish regiments, if it's Scotland, of course, that kind of thing. So our society was led by people, we really had a society full of service people. Now, we don't have that now.
No, we don't. And this is, as far as we are concerned, this is very, very unfortunate, because it makes it even more difficult to get people to understand. And one of the things I've got to add here, in June there is going to be a special day set aside for soldiers. Flags will be waved from flagpoles. What does that mean? If you forget that this is not a holiday, this is not a garden fete, we're doing
Box
this
and Wireless Scotland.
to remember the people who are now in Afghanistan, the people who have served in Iraq, the people who were down at the Falklands.
So I think in actual fact the problem is going to increase, because we're going to get a huge, I mean, there's one of the big regiments comes back tonight to Edinburgh, and I think we're going to see a huge increase when people leave the services in a requirement for what FEBA and you gentlemen are involved in.
Can I just...
Yes.
Yes, Tommy.
As you've probably seen that newspaper, the Sunday Post.
I've got the Sunday Post in front of me.
Now, we sent a warning to the Prime Minister of this explosion that's going to happen, and this is fact, that our men and women are coming back from theatre of war, and they are going to be in a situation like Ian was in the end of the Second World War, where they are going to be coming out of the forces and nowhere or nothing to look forward to. And nothing set up for them, and that's why it's crucial that FEBA exists to do that. But that's going to happen, Scotty.
Right, so there's going to be a huge number of people who seriously require help out there. They've come out of the services there. To what extent do they even require a social debriefing, if you like? You know, they'll have their military debriefing, but a social debriefing when they come out of, here's what Civvy Streets, here's where it's at, because I must be honest with you, apart from all the dangers, the horrors of war, etc., service life is a lot better organised than Civvy Street life at the moment. Would that be a fair comment?
That's very fair and very true. We are in the process of dealing with these men and women coming back from theatre of war just now, this minute.
Right, tonight. now?
Today. Right?
They're there.
At this minute, they're in our centre in Hamilton. And they're travelling as far as Birmingham to come up to us.
How many FEBA centres are there, Tommy?
One.
One, and that's you?
We're the only centre of its kind in Britain. And why that is, Scotty, is one word: commitment.
How has all this come about then? Give us just an indication of how you went from the idea of looking after fellow ex-service people to opening this wonderful centre, which I've seen and been round to see.
The idea came from my own experience coming out of the services, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and went through hell for a number of years. I then thought that I could give up the medication.
Did you feel very fragile, Tommy? Did you feel very alone and very deserted?
I felt alone, I felt frightened and angry, and all those words that all our servicemen are feeling at the moment.
And this would be coming out to friends and family. You would suddenly just lose it a bit.
I would lose... people would be frightened to speak to me in case we blew up, or physical violence would come out of its ugly head. I then...
Were you tempted to give somebody a walloping if they looked sideways at you?
Scotty, I've handed out a few, and I've received a few.
Right.
And people, the most important people is your family. My family stuck by me and gave me a chance. I got off the medication. I started doing physical exercise, and it was working. And I thought, if this is working for me, I'll try with my friends and people I know. So we decided to go for walking, and we built a wee gym. It just exploded. The amount of people that was calling me and saying, look, I've got this, and it was a feeling of I'm not alone anymore. And they weren't alone. They had somebody there.
Box and Wireless Scotland.
We then campaigned for 3 or 4 years, setting the FIBA name up and building up people we talked to and helping and referring on to other organisations. We then get a chance, and just a chance, we caught into this centre, and we opened up. Scotty, it's been a long journey and a huge
difficult
experience. Journey at times, but
a learning curve,
but most rewarding.
Most rewarding, yes.
Because I'll tell you, some cases, and I'll tell you one case, I won't mention the young chap's name. An ex-para, a young lad, he's only 25, was having difficulty in Dumfries. So we, through that article in the paper, heard of him, and went up to speak to him. We found out that he was getting into all sorts of trouble with his anger issues and this post-traumatic, that we would relocate him in Hamilton. We brought him down to Hamilton. We made a plan of hope for him, where we would get him into college and get him qualified and work in our gym.
Now that's a wonderful term, a plan of hope, because that's what this centre's all about, really, Tommy. If you had to sum it up in one word, would hope not be that word?
It's hope. It's everything, Scotty, to our men and women. Because see, once they come in, there are tears, there are expectations, but that hope is always there.
The battle goes on.
The battle goes on, and it will go on and on. Right? But my fear is, if we're not there,
now,
if this unique organisation is not there.
You've done all this wonderful work, and we now have this very impressive organisation called FEBA, that you guys have been in there at the start and started up. And thank you on behalf of all the service people out there. Thank you on behalf of those that you've helped, those that you may still help, those families of the people that you've helped and may still help and will still help on their behalf, because a lot of people will be very grateful to you for this. But as you know, the past is the past, the present is the present. I think you've got to know where you've come from to know where you are and where you're going. How do we move forward with this? Because you're now very, very anxious. Let's get right down to the crux of the visit today. You're very, very anxious that the centre will close. After how long? 1 year?
After 1 year. And
I take it this is money.
This is money. This is the evil stuff.
The actual premise is that FEBA are in at the moment is a year, but this work has been going on for more than that.
For many years.
For quite a few years. But now it's come to this crunch where do we go? We're looking for help.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the government of all this is a huge argument. A friend of mine was born in 1912 and was in the Navy in the Second World War, served in the Ark Royal, a swordfish pilot, and he said to me it made him very, very angry at the end of the Second World War when he saw blinded service people, ex-service people, begging on the streets with trays of matches and things to help the war blinded. Now, I have to say I agree with him. I think that if a government gets you into a situation, the government should also get you out of that situation. That would be looking after our citizens, which I feel is the duty of any government, is to look after its citizens. Would you agree with me there?
I would agree with you, Scotty, but it's came to a stage where this is not happening, and for the sake of our ex-servicemen, we need to look after ourselves.
What I would like to come in there just a wee bit. Like most people, I feel the government could do more.
Mm-hmm.
But the best way forward is to be able to, for these young guys, to be able to do something for themselves rather than wait for somebody else to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way that FEBA is going is getting them to do something for themselves. But if the place closes,
then you can't.
Nothing.
You can't. So we've got to stop closure.
We've got to stop closure. A psychiatrist once said to me many, many years ago, it's a great pity that people just cannot reverse back to what they were. I said, and think how many battered wives there are today because no treatment is available for their husbands.
Right.
Now they've got to get rid of their energy somehow, they've got to get rid of this aggression somehow, and if there is nowhere else, they will turn on the person nearest to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I think about that, the more I realise how true that is.
So we're looking here at, on a very basic level, customer care, client care.
Yep.
And I think, let's get down to what are we talking about here? I mean, how close is the centre to closure?
Wireless Scotland.
We're in peril.
Right. You're in peril right now.
Right now, at this minute, and not only us, but others in the veterans community. Right? This is not just a FEBA thing. This is going right through the veterans community, where we are being sort of starved out. I don't know the words.
But most important at the moment is to keep this place open.
Right.
We have a sustainable plan. Right?
Right.
Scotty.
So you've got a business plan, effectively.
We've got a business plan
Yes.
and we can survive.
Yes.
But we need to go over this time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And this has been brought about by and large by the economic situation.
Of course, and I feel for all those people out there.
What kind of money are we talking about?
We need 50,000 to run the centre per year.
£1,000 a week?
£1,000 a week.
If you've got £1,000 a week, then...
Not a week, 50,000 a year is...
That's 1,000 a week, Ian, yes?
1,000 a week.
Aye.
For that small, minute...
A huge... In fact...
Huge benefit. Not only health and well-being, but unbelievable results you get from this.
Well, let's look at this in the very harsh, cold light that economic advisors and governments look at things. And let's even take it from the business point of view now. I know this is a bit of a dirty word here because we're dealing with something far, far greater. But everybody looks to the looker. And, churches, charities, all sorts of organisations, of which there are a number of ex-service charities, but not perhaps doing anything like you guys are doing here. We're looking at £1,000 a week.
Box and Wireless Scotland.
Many business people say, if you're in trouble financially, expand. Look towards expansion. And I'm just wondering if we need to look at more FEBA centres built on the model of the one in Hamilton in Lanarkshire. And I think if we need to get the message out there, because £1,000 a week is 1,000 people giving £1. It's 2,000 people giving 50p. It's 4,000 people giving 25p, yes?
Correct.
And so on and so forth. Now, I think we need to look at some sustainable way of raising, say, 10 pence a week from everybody in Lanarkshire. That kind of thinking. And I'd be very surprised if that can't be done. Now, it's important that we realise it's not so it's come to this for the ex-service people. This is a solution to a problem. Would that be fair comment?
That would be fair.
You know, this is a solution. It's a massive appeal for the school children, a massive appeal coming from the local radio station, etc. I think it's doable. It's doable because you guys have come to a huge... We're now talking about some baby steps and some more huge strides. Would you agree with that? What can the nation do for you right now?
I think the nation can realise what they've got here. A unique opportunity.
I think, first of all, the nation has to, or the community, this community has to accept that here we have something which is really worthwhile. But unless we get some financial help very, very soon, then it's not going to survive. The idea of...
I think it must survive. I think it has to survive. And I think this is the turning point. This is not just the turning point for FEBA. It's not the turning point for you, the officers of FEBA. It's the turning point for the nation. It's the turning point for the nation, Ian, and it's come to a head this morning. I have in front of me letters that you've kindly furnished me with, 1/10 of it, because it's a private letter to Tommy Moffat from the private secretary to Prince William and Prince Harry. I've got a letter in front of me from the Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, that's just come back very, very recently. So there's awareness out there of what you're doing.
It's a very narrow field. Very narrow. It's got to be spread wider, much wider. And the only way that can be done, if somebody says today, look, I'll pitch in something.
Yes.
The centre is open for anybody to...
Is there a number that people can ring?
You can get me at any time, and I'll give you my mobile number.
Right, so this is Tommy Moffat. If you've just joined us, folks, and you're wondering what on earth's going on in the studio this morning, it's Scottie McClue's Massive Mighty Megaphone In. We're live on Lanarkshire's honoured guests in the studio are Tommy Moffat of FEBA, the forward edge of... I have one centre in Hamilton. I can see the start of something very, very big this morning as we speak, and I'm also delighted to have with me is a former Hussar and is involved at officer level in FEBA with...
You can contact me any time, day or night.
Right.
Now this is open...
24 hours.
The centre is open 24 hours.
This is fantastic. No wonder you need money.
24 hours as our veterans are coping with these issues 24 hours. We open the doors at 6 o'clock in the morning with a free breakfast up till 9. We close the centre at 10 o'clock for some sleep time. But the emergency number is open 24 hours, and that number is 0791 0058 106. If you haven't got a phone, come into the centre. Nobody's turned away.
Or get in touch with us here at L107 0058 106.
And that is 24 hours a day. That is open.
And no one is turned away from the door.
Nobody. As some of our ex-servicemen, as Ian says, do not sleep. They find it difficult to cope with issues that they have through the day, either drinking or whatever, and they get into this situation where they're up through the night and they're sleeping through the day. So we have to think of that and make sure that we're there for them.
Because their body clock's all over the place.
They're all over the place.
Yep.
Plus, the reason we're open at 6 in the morning is the dreaded off sales is opened early.
Of course.
And access to booze at that time in the morning isn't. So if they have a place that's opened at 6, They can come in, doesn't cost them anything. They have a bite to eat, they can have a read at the paper, a wee chat, they can say nothing. No, they can just sit in the chair, say nothing. Just being there for them as our priority projects throughout the day, where they can get involved in the gym, or they can play chess. We try to get involvement through
Box and Wireless Scotland.
some form of activity throughout the day. Some of the veterans who we've said like to do things themselves.
Yeah.
We've got guys who have had issues in the past who are now in a position to help others. Like in June, we're hoping to have a bus trip, a day trip to Blackpool.
So you're building all the time. You're building on the idea, you're building on facilities, you're tailoring requirements all the time.
We're building not necessarily on facilities, but on people.
On people.
We're investing.
Which is the most important.
The most important thing is the veteran and his families.
Yes.
If his family see him getting better, the family gets better. Because some of these issues that we're dealing with our veterans are passed on to their family, where the family starts to get the symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
So it works both ways, Scotty.
Yeah, so you're saving a lot of suffering here. There's a prevention of suffering, and prevention's better than cure.
I'll give you an instance yesterday. A veteran was in the morning, he was coping well, had a good day with us, cup of tea, a chat. He usually leaves at 12 o'clock. He did so. At 4 p.m. he returned, not in the best of health, a wee bit vulnerable, and the centre was there for him. That's just one case that the centre is needed at these times. So if you are a veteran and you're out there, you're not alone.
Fantastic, Tommy. Thank you for that. Now, we must say that we touched on the reaction of politicians, all very interested and polite in their responses, but not necessarily any great help forthcoming. Would that be fair comment?
Scotty, I've been on the journey. I went to see the Prime Minister, Mr Blair. I spent 4 days at Houses of Commons speaking to politicians. All very well and good. Promises were made and never kept.
We contacted the Scottish Labour leader Ian Gray this morning seeking a response to Tommy's interview today, and there's as yet been no response from Mr Gray or from the Labour Party. Is that a surprise?
That's no surprise, and Ian will tell you that from past experience. As I said, I've been on the journey. I've spoke to Scottish Parliament, and I actually even went to see the Queen last year
Wireless Scotland.
At the Palace.
And she, of course, is the most senior officer.
She's the most senior officer, and a very nice lady she is.
Wonderful lady, yes.
And hats off to her. She asked us what we do and congratulated us, and asked us to continue what we do. And that's all the people. These people are vital.
These people are, the support is absolutely vital. Right, we shall put that number out there, 0791 0058 106, 0791 0058 106, and contact Tommy Moffat. And in fact, I'll even spell it for you. It's Moffat, Tommy Moffat, and feel free to have a good chat with them. And if you can do anything financially for FEBA, then please do so. I think this is absolutely vital. Would it be your dream, Tommy, to see more FEBA centres?
Scotty, that would be a wonderful thing, but I really, at this time, I'm most anxious that this centre is saved,
and it's saved right now.
Right, for the benefit of our ex-servicemen who are going to be coming back in large numbers with these issues. It is vital that we are there for them. And I'm going to pass you on to Ian and hear his thoughts.
I think if this centre is saved, other centres will spring up.
Yes.
They're bound to do. But if this centre goes down, nothing will happen.
Let's decide now this centre's not going down. Tommy Moffat, Ian Forsyth, thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for coming and joining us and explaining the whole situation to the nation. And we will, fingers very tightly crossed that things will happen very quickly.
Can I just say something, Scotty, before you go?
Yes, sir.
To the people of Lanarkshire and beyond who have helped us, thank you to everyone. And just remember there that Scotland has the best fighting men in the world. And when we were there for you, but now we need you. Please help us. And if there's any veterans out there who is in need of help, contact the number given by Scotty or come into the centre. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Tommy Moffat and Ian Forsyth from FIBA. And I'm going to play you guys out with a very appropriate piece of music. It's called When Love Comes to Town.
Box and Wireless Scotland. The very best of your box and wireless.